I'm joined by the President of the Florida Senate, your Senator Kathleen Passidomo. And Speaker of the House of Representatives, Paul Renner in the state of Florida. Now, normally when we have the traveling roadshow with the three of us, you can probably guess that there's going to be some legislative proposals discussed. And so that's why we're here, and you'll be able to hear about that in just 1 minute. But we also have our local representatives, both Mello and Rommel are with us here today. Thank you. And then we'll hear from Lieutenant Tom Orr, who's with the Collier Sheriff's Office, as well as Brendan Wexler, who's from Wex Gunworks and is also a firefighter over in Palm Beach County. The subject of today is tackling this issue of ESG. Now, they created this. These things just happen. I don't know where this stuff comes from, but these elites grab it and they really want to impose it on the rest of us. So it's called environment social governance. But basically, I think what it's devolved into is a mechanism to inject political ideology into investment decisions, corporate governance, and really just the everyday economy. That is not ultimately something that is going to work out well for us here in Florida or in the United States of America. There's not a real groundswell for this amongst the average citizen. I think this is something where you have a lot of folks, not just in the United States, but internationally. Sometimes they convene in places like Davos, and they have these ideas to try to do this. Now, what are they actually trying to do? Well, one of their big targets is domestic energy production. They do not like us producing more oil and gas. They do not want us to be energy independent. And that's a bad policy because I think we all know whether we're energy independent or not only affects your bottom line in terms of the energy that you have to consume to go to work, to live, and to do the basic things we all do, have businesses to operate, but also it affects our national security. When you have to go to foreign countries that are hostile to us to try to get energy, that is not a good place to be in. But what ESG wants to do is they want to put a premium against that type of business. It's also bad for our national security. When you're doing this stuff with ESG, you are increasing the costs that businesses have to comply with here in the United States. Why does that affect our national security? Well, one of the major things facing our country that we need to do is recapture all the supply chains and bring them out of China and get them back here. You had a situation when COVID hit, almost every single thing that people needed was produced in China. Why would you want that when this is a country that is not an ally of the United States? And so that really helps China, ESG. It gives them an even bigger competitive advantage than they already have with how they don't follow and do fair dealing. So we don't want to go down that road either. It also violates the fiduciary duty that executives have to the shareholders of the publicly traded companies. If you think about it, your pension money, your retirement money is likely invested in some of these funds, and those funds should be done to try to produce the best result for you using the available investment options. Well, what ESG says is, no, we're not going to do, even if it would do a better return, we're not going to allow you to invest in certain areas. You're not allowed to invest in oil and gas. You're not allowed to invest in disfavored areas. So they're constricting the ability of people to invest your money, and obviously that means you're going to not do as well as you otherwise could have. Sometimes people will try to say that you do better with this, but that doesn't make any sense, because if you don't have ESG, you could invest in green stuff if it's profitable. There's no restriction on that. You invest in what is best. ESG restricts the ability to do that. And if you think about what they're doing, if they're advancing a political agenda, if it's a corporate executive, they're using shareholder assets to do that. They're using people's pension money and 401k money effectively to advance a political agenda, and that is not an appropriate use of corporate power. This also ends up going when they evaluate, like if a bank evaluates different companies, they will use things called so-called social credit scores. And this is actually something more likely to find use in the CCP. It doesn't have a place in the US of A, but what they're doing is they're ranking you about what you're doing to basically conform your behavior to their ideological imperatives. And that's not something that is acceptable here in the state of Florida. And the thing is, their targets always seem to be, and I haven't seen an example where it's not, they always seem to be those people who are disfavored by the jet setters in places like Davos, Second Amendment advocates, people involved in the production of domestic energy. We have a situation here in Florida. One of our home-based companies is a private corrections company called the GEO Group. What's one of the main things that they provide services for? Provide services to the federal government and ICE to be able to detain illegal aliens who are coming across the southern border. Well, a few years ago, GEO Group was debanked by the major financial institutions in this country because they were basically trying to pursue a policy of de facto abolish ICE, and really they were expressing support for open borders. So this was a company that was doing things contracting with the actual federal government, and you had the banks cut them off, and they have to try to find funding elsewhere. So that is using your economic power to advance a political agenda. Now, this is something that I think is very serious because I think the policies are bad. I think having a politicized economy is not the way that you want to go, but it raises the idea of who governs our society. Our Constitution says we, the people, govern through elections and different houses of the legislature, executive, and you can kind of arrive at policy. People can evaluate that. They can choose other people in future elections. Well, what ESG does, and when you have major asset managers and these international folks and folks in these big Wall Street banks, they just want to do an end run around that. They don't want to have to worry about winning elections. In fact, a lot of the policies they pursue could never win favor with the American public. I mean, abolish ICE, saying that you should have an open border and that it's somehow wrong to be involved in immigration enforcement, that would never fly with the public. But that's what they're doing. And so this is this is a distortion of a government of, by, and for the people. They are not accountable to you. They are not accountable to us. And I think ultimately it does represent a threat, not just to a smooth and prosperous economy, smooth functioning, prosperous economy, but also our very freedom itself. So Florida, as usual, is leading the charge against this. Last year, we acted by prohibiting using ESG in the investments decisions for our state pension program. So that was done through the State Board of Administration. Today, we're going to build off that success with a number of proposals that we'll look to get through the legislative session. So first, we're going to put what we already did into statute so that our investment decisions with the money of firefighters, cops, teachers, other people that have worked in state and local government and have qualified for pensions here in the state of Florida, that those decisions are being made on what the best interests of the pensioners are or the beneficiaries, not based on political considerations. And so that will be in statute. They will have to honor the fiduciary obligation as understood from time immemorial until just about a few years ago, that's what their job is to do. We are also going to enact protections for Floridians against discrimination by big banks and large financial institutions for their religious, political, or social beliefs. You're going to hear from one of our speakers. You're going to hear from one of our speakers today who is going to talk about getting cut off because he's involved in the firearms industry. So we believe that first of all, these big banks were bailed out by you, by the way, how long ago? So we believe in non-discrimination, and we think that that's an important principle. We are also going to, in the state of Florida, prohibit these same institutions from using so-called social credit scores in making banking and lending decisions. That is a way to try to change people's behavior. It's a way to try to impose politics on what should just be economic decisions. And so we're making sure to protect this as a sphere of economic decision-making, not political activism. We are also not going to house in either the state or local government level deposits, and we have a lot of deposits. We've got a massive budget surplus in Florida. You have deposits all over the place that go in where state and local government use financial institutions. None of those deposits will be permitted to be done in institutions that are pursuing this woke ESG agenda. And we're also finally going to make sure that ESG is not infecting other decisions at both the state and local government. So no investment decisions at the state or local government with ESG, no use of ESG in procurement and in contracting, and no use of ESG when issuing local or state bonds. So I think we've done more with these proposals than any state in the country. We believe that, as I said at the beginning, this is an elite-driven phenomenon. It is not ultimately going to be a road that is going to be good for this country, and it's not going to be good for other industrialized countries. They really want to jam this on society. They don't really have the persuasive ability to get this done through the democratic process, so they're hoping if they can just get this spreading to all the elite rungs of society, then they can just impose it, and basically we just have to sit and take it. That's not going to happen in the state of Florida. We will stand up for folks in places like Daytona and Destin, and we will not be following the elites in places like Davos. Thank you very much. All right, Paul Renner.
Well, we're lucky here in the state of Florida that we've got a governor who will stand up to things like ESG when others will not. How about that? And I want to give a shout out to Naples' own Bob Rommel, who will be running the bill in the House, who's a champion on this issue to fight against ESG. Bob, thank you. You know, why is this a problem? And when you look at it, you know, we all invest in our 401ks, all these millions of people, and on the surface, it's this great middle-class empowerment because each and every one of us have a piece of ownership in America's finest companies. But what happens is the people at the very top, those asset managers like BlackRock, take all of our money and they invest it in one narrow ideological direction. They don't speak for your voice or mine. They speak for their voice. And as the governor said, it's being hatched out of the UN and out of Davos on their values, not ours. And so it takes what should be this great egalitarian moment and completely turns it on its head. And so, again, what it's going to do when we're talking about attacking the fossil fuel industry and all the other things it does is going to drive up our costs. And we've already seen that. We haven't built a refinery since the 70s. It's crazy. And then you have Joe Biden going to Venezuela and saying, please give us fuel. Venezuela, when we have enough and we were energy independent, but for the Biden administration. So we're going to get back to making sure America is energy independent. And one of the benefits of what we're doing in pushing back is to restore America's place of energy independence, first and foremost. And the governor talked about national security. Obviously, if we don't have energy, you can't move. Energy is life for an economy. And so we will not sacrifice our economy for these woke elites. And finally, the biggest thing that I think ESG represents is a total hijacking of democracy. These issues, if Joe Biden and the Democrats wanted to say tomorrow, look, we're going to not use fossil fuels, we're going to stop people driving gas-powered cars next year, they could do that. But then they'd have to face up with the public scrutiny to know that our prices are going to go through the roof. You have, Gavin Newsom out in California saying that everybody's got to drive an electric car, and the week later he says you can't charge your electric car. Stay home. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you have to go to the emergency room? And so we are going to take a strong stand. And I got to tell you, how awesome is it to be here in the state of Florida with a great governor like Ron DeSantis? So hey, and you know what? We're just getting started. Right, Governor? So we look forward to running this bill, and with Senate President Pasadomo, another native here of Naples. We're going to do big things this year. Look forward to that.
All right.
Well, welcome, Governor, to my district. We always love having him here, and if you come back once a week, that'd be fine with us. So, I am so proud of my colleague, Paul Renner, in the House for taking on this tremendous initiative with the governor, who is, this is amazing what he's doing for our state. Our state is just rocketing because of the policies. And and this is the thing, the governor is doing things that we all wish we could do, and having the courage to stand up and do the things that those of us who are a little bit quieter can do. And I am so honored and proud to serve with him and with Paul Renner in this legislature, because we are doing some really, really good things for our state. So I was just going to say something, when we're talking about ESG, I try to bring it down to the level of us. Now, how many of us have stocks and whatever? We invest, and we have a money manager or whatever, even through a pension plan. Do we ever vote? Do we ever vote for what stocks they're going to invest in? No, because I know I have relied upon the company that invests my funds to invest. We can't do that anymore, because those companies don't really care about the return for us. They just care about ideologies. So I'm going to try to start, when you get those proxy things, I don't know if it helps, but you may want to start looking at them, because we're going to put some policies for our state workers to make sure that we give them the best return possible. But for those of us who are out there, with our own retirement, I'm going to try to start voting, because we're going to have to. And the kind of things that our governor is putting in place here will make it easier for us. So I'm just so thrilled that we have this announcement in my district. And, I look forward to having the governor come back here again and again and again to sign all these bills. Thank you all so much.
All right, Brendan Wexler.
Thanks for having me, Governor. Appreciate it. So I am here. My name's Brendan Wexler. I'm a professional fireman. I work in Palm Beach County for 17 years. Also, I am the owner of Wex Gunworks in Delray Beach, Florida. Business started in 1979 by my father in Pennsylvania. We've been in the state of Florida for about 15 years now. My story is, one day I went into Wells Fargo, being a customer for 25 years at Wells Fargo, and went to make my normal deposit, and the teller said to me, "Hey, your accounts are being closed down." So, as anyone in this room, if your bank account is being closed down, your life's just turned upside down. So they had me call a customer service number, and when I called a representative, they put me on hold for a couple minutes, and they said, "Your accounts are being closed down, your business account, your personal account, my joint account with my ex-wife, and I also have a daughter, and a small credit line. Everything's being shut down. You have 1 month to get your money out of here." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "It's a business decision." So no one knows. I didn't know what to say. They said, "We'll send you a letter in the mail. You have a month to get your money out of here." So now your life's turned upside down. If you can't transact with a business, we don't have a business. So that's where I was. And then all of your personal stuff. So I got a letter a week later. The first letter that I received, it says, "We do not lend to certain types of industries," on a Wells Fargo letterhead. This is the truth, and I have the letterhead with me. Another letter I got, and they said, "You have to be out of here within a month." The second letter it said, "Well, we did a risk analysis, and we want you out of here." Pretty much. Made no sense at all. I had also built an Instagram account over 7 years, about 50,000 followers, organically, just taking pictures of guns, not shooting them on old rusty objects, and we had a lot of connections there. So I also reached out to my media connections at the NSSF, who I'm very good friends with, and a gentleman named Stephen Gutowski wrote an article, an amazing article, and we've had a lot of media coverage from COVID up to today. He wrote the article. I screenshotted it, put it on Instagram. Next day, my Instagram account's gone. Gone. History. Bye-bye. So I have a lot of connections on Instagram. So now that's gone. As far as Wells Fargo goes, I went to I had a lot of people in the country reach out to me, a lot of support on we were on the Ed Henry show. That was a bunch of different media events. So we have a lot of support from across the country. I want to tell my story because it's wrong. Woke banking. So they proceeded to send me another letter a month later saying, well, it's a risk profile. So now as these TV interviews pick up, they said that I'm the risk. So I'm here to tell the story. This big reporter said, hey, Brandon, you ever have a problem? No. Did you ever get arrested? No. Did you ever bounce a check? No. No problems. So the PIO of Wells Fargo spun it all the way around and said, you're the risk, not the industry. So what they did was wrong, and I'm here to tell my story because I think it's wrong what they did to me. I was able to transition my accounts to another bank, not an issue, to transact my business, but what Wells Fargo did was completely wrong, and I just wanted to tell the story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Tom.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. It is an absolute honor to be here before you today to support Governor DeSantis. I truly appreciate what Governor DeSantis has done to back the blue and stand up for all law enforcement and public safety in general. Thank you, sir. Can't thank you enough. It was very frustrating to learn that my retirement, currently being managed by the state, was helping support radical causes, and that in all actuality had nothing to do with the best rate on return. I was advised that the investors who were managing my retirement funds were voting to invest my retirement for causes like ESG, Chinese investments, and discriminatory companies who push political agendas that they can't get past at the ballot box, instead of making the #1 priority of maximizing returns on investment. When woke companies invest based on earlier mentioned causes, they aren't asking or even care about my opinion in these seemingly political decisions. In actuality, they're risking my retirement and others like me, such as teachers, state employees, EMS workers, corrections officers, and law enforcement officers who work every day to serve and protect our communities across the great state of Florida. Thanks to Governor DeSantis, fund managers with hidden agendas will no longer get the opportunity to vote on the state shares anymore, and I support everything the governor's doing to keep politics out of our pension fund. Thanks to the governor's leadership and vision, today's announcements will help even more law enforcement officers who work for police departments with their own retirement systems, meaning no government in Florida can institute these woke practices to appease a radical mob. Thank you, Governor DeSantis, so much for your leadership and vision. We appreciate you more than you know.
All right. Well, I think this is going to be something that's really going to be great. I think you're going to see other states probably follow Florida's lead on this, as so many other issues, and that, I think that'd be very, very good. But ultimately, we just have to come to grips with the idea, the banking and the finance. I mean, that's only one aspect of all these different aspects of society where a lot of powerful elites are trying to jam down politics and impose an ideological agenda. You see it in big tech. Obviously, you see it in universities. You see it really across the gamut, and you see it in the bureaucracies in terms of some of the stuff you see coming out of D.C. It's insane. So freedom, I think, the free state of Florida, yes, absence of the COVID restrictions are very important, but freedom's also freedom to live your life free from this agenda being jammed down your throat, free for you to think for yourselves and to make your own decisions. And so we are intent on preserving that very important freedom here.